like Ashley said, my name is Anna Dearmon Kornick, and I would love to start off by having you just like pop in the chat box real quick what it is that you do for work. And so while you are popping in the chat box what it is you do for work, let's just dive right in to telecommuting. So, okay, cool. Customer service rep, insurance broker, account manager. Got it. So we have some different industries represented. Yeah, digital marketing strategy. Perfect. Yeah, project engineer. Very cool. Grad student. Okay. Nice. Okay. Well, welcome all of you guys. Telecommuting 101. One thing that I loved before we got started today was that Ashley shared with me some of the biggest struggles that you guys are experiencing when it comes to working from home. It's brand new territory for a lot of us. And I would love for you to take a moment and just in the chat box, let me know what your biggest challenge is right now when it comes to remote work, whether it is productivity based and trying to get things done, trying to manage your schedule. Are you having trouble staying focused, right? Like Gabby, staying focused with all of the distractions. Or are you really more focused on the leadership piece? Maybe you are managing up to your boss, or you're trying to stay connected to your team members like Alicia is. And so during our time together today, we'll talk about telecommuting in the context of energy, environment, and expectations. Energy, environment, and expectations. So as Ashley said, my name is Anna Dearmon Kornick, and I am a time management coach. And I purposefully included a photo of myself barefoot to totally get into the telecommuting vibe, because I'm business on top, party on the bottom right now, wearing my yoga pants, and I'm barefooted. Full disclosure, this is the first time I've worn makeup in a week. Can I get a yes in the chat box if that's you? Business on top, party in the bottom, or maybe you're just all PJs right now. However, we're making it work, we're making it work. And so I'm a time management coach, and I work one-on-one with executives and professionals to help them stop feeling overwhelmed and start spending time on what matters most. And that looks different for everybody, and my clients are located all over the country. And so we're looking at different environments. We're looking at different types of work. We're looking at different places in the like professional pecking order. But when it comes down to it, the concepts and the strategies are all the same. It's just about finding the best way to apply it. And I will say that one of my coaching calls this past February involved helping one of my clients strategize getting her muse's shoes decorated. So to me, that was one of the best time management assignments I've had so far. So in addition to being a time management coach, I'm also the host of It's About Time, which is a podcast about work, life, and balance. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify, really anywhere you listen to podcasts. A new episode drops every Monday, and I alternate between doing a deep dive into a time management, work-life balance concept, interviewing other go-getters just like you about how they do life and make it work. Oh, full screen. Okay, what can you guys see right now? Can you see? I just see the message from Alicia. Oh, I'm just sharing that desktop. Here we go. Thank you. Is that better? Perfect. Okay. I have two screens, and I was sharing the wrong one. So Alicia, thank you so much for your help with that. Okay, awesome. So we'll keep rolling. Okay, telecommuting 101, energy, environment, and expectations. So we'll start with energy. Energy really boils down to mindset in a lot of ways. And it's, in a way, trying to recreate recreate the same mindset that you brought to the office at home, which obviously is very challenging as it's just plain and simple not the same environment. And we'll dig into environment shortly, but the best way that you can start your day getting into the mindset for work is by getting dressed. And when I say getting dressed, that does not necessarily mean putting on exactly what you would have worn to work for a given work day, but it does mean changing out of your pajamas, even if that means changing into somewhat nicer pajamas to work for the day. So really the first piece is getting dressed. And that brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, which is creating routines for yourself and creating the, so the best example that I can give for you is Mr. Rogers. Can I get a yes in the text box if we just love Mr. Rogers? So at the beginning of every episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, what did he do? He walked in his home, he took off his jacket, and he put on his inside cardigan. Yeah. He took off his outside shoes and he put on his inside shoes. At face value, yeah, love Mr. Rogers. At face value, we probably thought like, oh yeah, he's getting comfortable. But what he was really doing in making that transition from outside clothes to inside clothes is he was sending a signal to his brain. He was doing a physical action that connected to a mental state of mind. He was going from outside, out and about to the inside mindset. And so that's where getting dressed and creating routines come into play. What you're doing is you're doing a physical activity like getting dressed, which signals to your brain that it's go time. So let me tell you about the startup and shutdown routine. When we're working from home, the commute from our bedroom to our sofa or our bedroom to our kitchen table, a whole lot different from commuting from our home to our office. Commute from your home to your office, you probably take the same route to get to work. You probably follow the same kind of steps every day. Maybe you walk into your office, you put your bag down, you take out your laptop. Maybe you go get a coffee, you talk to your coworker down the hall. Without realizing it, you've created this launch routine for yourself that helps take you from that home mindset through the commute to work. And that's an example of a physical routine that signals that it's time to do something mentally. And the commute, like I said, the commute from your bedroom to your kitchen table just doesn't. So this is your opportunity to design what's called a startup and shutdown routine. And basically this looks like coming up with a set number of actions that you can do in the same order every morning that signals to your brain that it's time to work. This could look like if you're working at the kitchen table. This could look like in the same order every morning, opening your laptop, putting on, your cozy work from home sweater, getting up and making sure that you have a full glass of ice water, opening your email, boom, that's your startup routine. And it's the practice of doing the same thing in the same order every time that then begins to signal to your mind, okay, it's go time. And then your shutdown routine is basically the same thing. It's at the end of the day, time to spend, having a set number of activities, maybe just 3 to 5, just a set sequence of activities that you complete every day that signals to your brain, okay, it's time to shift out of work mode. Because without that change in environment that typically serves as that boundary, that transition for us, we have to create it for ourselves. And whether you're brand new to working from home or you've done this forever, I'm sure you're finding that when you work from home, everything just gets kind of blurry and like a blob because there's really no start and no end. So it's in creating those boundaries with a startup and shutdown routine that you can start to like define your bookends for the day, essentially. And because I know that the startup and shutdown concept might be new to you guys, I've put together a completely free guide that you can download by visiting annadkornick.com/YLC that will kind of walk you through the process of designing your own startup and shutdown routine. And it also includes an example of what you can do. But this is one of the, if you get nothing else from our time together, I really encourage you to put together some kind of a startup and shutdown routine so that you can create that mental bookends and those boundaries for yourself. So the next piece of the energy puzzle is in really understanding what in your day, what about your work do you consider deep work, and what do you consider shallow work? If you guys have heard of this concept before, I would love you to just pop a 1, put a 1 in the chat box if you have heard of deep work and shallow work. And if you've never heard of this, put a 2 in the chat box. Okay, so we've got, okay, cool. Y'all, this is gonna blow your mind. So this is a brand new way to look at everything on your to-do list, as whether it's deep work or shallow work. Deep work is probably the stuff that you get paid the big bucks to do. Like, this is the core of what you do in your job. It requires focus. It requires, actually, yeah, here we go. It requires focus. For a lot of people, an example is writing, because it requires you to really, hone in on your expertise, to do the research. For some people, that looks like doing math. Anything that is complicated, that requires a lot of focus, problem solving, that's your deep work right there. So on the opposite end of the spectrum is shallow work. This is your easy stuff. This is what you do when you just need to do busy work that's still technically productive. This is like scanning your email or putting your email in folders is an example of shallow work. Filing, not that we're manually putting things in filing cabinets while we're working from home, but organizing files in a Google Drive, for example, that's shallow work. So I would love for each of you to give me a quick example of something that is deep work in your day-to-day. Like, what does deep work look like for you? For me, it looks like writing, and it looks like writing and recording podcasts. My deep work is also doing my one-to-one coaching calls. That's when I have to be completely on and completely focused. Okay, yeah, memo writing, creating a PowerPoint, really anything. Yeah, really anything that is key to, brief. See, that's perfect. Yeah, great examples. And then, so where we start to use deep work and shallow work is how we organize our day. And that brings me to the biological peak time, because you're going to want to first have some ideas of what deep work and shallow work mean to you before we dig into biological peak time. So this is when I really get to nerd out on time management. 2:55 p.m. 2:55 p.m. A British study found that 2:55 p.m. is the absolute least productive time of day for workers. Now, I don't know all the full details of this study, but how many of you really feel like you're at your best at 2:55 in the afternoon? I mean, it's after lunch, right? Exactly, Kelly. Like 2:55 is exhausting. 2:55 is the worst time of day to do anything truly productive. Which the struggle is real. So when it comes to organizing your day, your biological peak time essentially is when you feel at your best, and your biological trough is when you feel at your worst. And for a lot of people, that peak time is going to be in the morning to mid-morning, and that trough is going to be in the afternoon. That's when you're just like, oh, can't do anything. And then we have another smaller peak time called a rebound that happens like late evening. And it's being strategic and thinking, okay, if I, while I am working from home, have the ability to design my day and when I do what, I'm going to put my best, most important work, my deep work during my peak time. So if you know that you are at your best at like 10 a.m., 10 a.m. is not the time to go take a walk. 10 a.m. is not the time to check social media. 10 a.m. is the time to get that deep work done. Because what you do by putting your most important work during your highest energy point of the day, you're able to like exponentially increase your productivity in doing that one thing. And so in the afternoon, when the struggle is real, that's the best time to do shallow work. That's the best time to put labels on envelopes, if that's a thing that you do. That's a good time to do a quick email scan, to do quick check-ins. It's a good time for a coffee break. It's a good time for a conference call where you're just kind of listening in for brainstorming. And if you can, take a nap. Naps are completely underrated. And I think that the workday should come with a kindergarten style nap time personally, and that we would all be much happier people. And if you agree with me, just put nap in the text box and let me know that I'm not alone. Nap with an exclamation point, like all for it. Yes, exactly. So this is your permission slip to, if you can, just take a nap at around 2:55, and you'll actually come back from it with that renewed rebound of energy so that you can be more productive, because there's nothing worse than trying to slog through your deep work, trying to create that PowerPoint, trying to push yourself to write that podcast episode when you're in your lowest energy point of the whole day. Nappuccino, yes. Okay, so you have read When by Daniel Pink. Yeah, Nappuccino. So a Nappuccino that Esteban posted in the chat box, a Nappuccino is drinking a cup of coffee about 20 minutes before you it's like right when you take a nap, so that right as you're waking up from the nap, the coffee goes into effect and you're just like, you're ready to go. But perfect, Nappuccino. My next webinar will be all about Nappuccinos. So yes, the beginning of a 20-minute nap, because it takes around 7 minutes to fall asleep for a nap, and then the coffee takes about 27 to 30 minutes to, the caffeine takes about 27 to 30 minutes to kick in. This is perfect. This is a lot of fun. So, okay, so far we've talked about energy, which is about making sure that you create the right mindset by getting dressed for work. It's creating a startup and shutdown routine so that you can create that commute experience for yourself so that you can transition into work mode. And it's about knowing your deep work from your shallow work so that you can be strategic when you do that work. Putting your deep work during your highest energy point, taking a nap at 2:55 or whenever you're at your lowest point, or doing, low impact stuff. And then finally, using that burst of energy that you have in the early afternoon, early evening to do also similar deep work. So let's get into environment, because this is another important piece of the puzzle. And this looks like your workspace. So the first thing, just like get dressed, the first thing that I have to recommend is to get out of bed. Just like that commute experience helps you transition into work mode, having a specifically defined space for work will help you get into that mindset that you need. And our bedroom, our bed specifically, it's for rest. It's for it's for non-work things. And by separating those two spaces, if you can, it will help you be more productive, and it will help you rest better at night whenever you reserve your room and your bed for just rest and those activities. So first thing I'm going to tell you is to get out of bed and to separate your space. If in the chat box, who is working at a kitchen table and who is working in like a set office space? Kind of give me an idea of what you're working with here, because I know a lot of you guys, you work at an office normally. And so having a set office space, okay, set office space, that's great. Desk in the living room. Yeah, there are going to be a large chunk of us that are going to be kitchen table warriors, you know? Yeah, set office space, portion of the dining room table, a desk in the hallway. So however you can create a separate space that is just reserved for work, that will enable you to approach that space with the set work mindset. Working from the sofa can be super comfortable, but it's almost like working in your bed. You go to the sofa to relax. You go to the sofa to have that recharge time. Having a separate space is going to be key. But if you find yourself working at the kitchen table, if you're able to, you know, have a portion of the table, portion of the dining room, like someone mentioned, where you're able to keep your things set up and you're not having to pick things up and take things out every single day, that's even better. And, you know, one thing that I'll mention that I wish I had said in the beginning is that, you know, going through all of these recommendations, it's going to be impossible for you to, for every single one of these to apply to your situation. But if you can take just a handful of what works and treat it like a buffet, then that will do nothing but improve your experience. So in addition to getting out of bed and separating your space, I encourage you to try to copy and paste your office setup, in that you try to replicate, okay, what did my desk and my office setup like in my office? Did I have my laptop over here and a notepad over here? Did I always put my coffee, you know, trying to replicate as best you can your real office setup in your telecommuting, your work from home office setup, is just going to make that transition just a little bit easier, because even though it's not apples to apples, you don't have the same size desk, you don't have everything where it used to be. Even if you had a file cabinet to your bottom, you know, left underneath your desk, maybe that's where you stack your work files. Maybe that's where you just put similar things. And again, like I know it's a struggle, but just finding a way to replicate your at work environment in your home environment will make that transition a lot easier. And then this is a simple technique that may not, again, depending on your setup, might not work for everyone, but it's turning your back on potential distractions. So this could look like if you have a kitchen, if you're working at the kitchen table and you have, you know, 4 chairs to choose from, choose the chair that puts your back to the TV, or choose the chair that puts your back to the sink full of dirty dishes, because out of sight, out of mind really does work. And so any chance that you have to arrange yourself so that you are not constantly seeing, you know, home things, so that you're not constantly seeing things that are going to pull you in that direction. So, yes. So environment, out of bed, separate your space, do your best to copy and paste and replicate your office setup, and then do your best to turn your back on distractions. So for the rest of the time, we're going to talk about expectations. Let's be honest, telecommuting would be a whole lot easier if we didn't have to make our schedules match up with other people, because then we could just do whatever we want. But the reality is that we're all members of teams, and we all have to rely on our boss or our colleagues or those who work under us in order to get our jobs done together. So we'll start out by talking about how we can work with our boss to make this work. So I'd love to know, just put the word boss in the comments, how many of you have dealt with a less than ideal setup in dealing with your, and I realize that you may not want to, you know, feel free, this is completely private. I will say that, yeah, I mean, it is tough. We're in a brand new situation. We're in uncharted territories. For so long, many of us have been told that what you do for your job can't be done from home. And now we're finding out that we have no other choice and we're having to figure it out. And a lot of the generation differences in the workforce are really starting to come to light, because there are some who really value that face-to-face connection. And then there are some who are completely understanding of our ability to get our work done anytime, anywhere. Yeah, generational differences. And so it's been really interesting for me to hear from brand new telecommuting workers across industries about the kinds of, I would say, really restrictions of unrealistic expectations being placed on them by their boss. And I know how hard this is, but my first piece of advice is to be understanding. Recognize that, we all bring our own unique, differences, our own unique backgrounds to the table. And, understanding that the boomer generation, who many of us report to right now, they really value that face-to-face connection. That you're not working if I don't see you working. And so I really just encourage you to be understanding, to give your boss some grace, and understand that they're navigating a brand new time, brand new territories. And once you are able to, accept that and understand that, it can make your communication and it can make the situation a lot easier, just knowing that they're just as stressed as you are. The second really important thing is to communicate your reality. And, all of your relationships with your boss are going to be different. But if there is any time to be completely open about what your situation looks like, maybe you have kids at home, maybe your husband or wife or partner is in the healthcare industry, and it's not only business as usual for them, but their hours are longer. Maybe you're not seeing them as often. We don't have childcare readily available. Maybe you're homeschooling. And so it's incredibly important to be upfront with your boss about what it is that you're dealing with and what you're actually able to do in terms of following through with work. If you're balancing both work and homeschooling and childcare responsibilities, you're not going to have the ability to be at your laptop for the standard 8 hours per day. And in communicating that, you're able to be more upfront about just what's possible, which will in turn help your boss understand. The next thing is to provide updates. And I realize that that's obvious, provide updates, but that really plays into the generational differences again, and just to be aware of your boss's needs, and using your experience in the office to dictate, how you provide updates to your boss. Maybe you weren't given guidelines on how often your boss wants to hear from you. And so this is when it's up to you to really take the initiative and determine, okay, my boss hasn't given me guidelines about when they want to hear from me, so I'm going to update them, at the end of each day until they tell me not to. Or maybe I'm going to provide a report once a week. It's taking the initiative to be communicative as you can. And then it's to offer solutions. You're members of YLC. So clearly you're leaders, what's up. You are on top of the pulse of what's happening in the city, what kind of technology is available. This is a huge opportunity for you to step up as a leader to offer solutions that haven't been provided, or when your boss hasn't taken to truly think through what a viable telecommuting experience could look like. They may be at a complete and total loss, and this is your opportunity to step up and make recommendations. And a lot of times offering those solutions can be in the form of, we're talking on Zoom, but when it comes to telecommuting, there are two important categories of tools that you need to have in place in order to have a productive team experience. And so communication tools, just like we're talking right now, Zoom, Slack, Google Hangouts Meet, collaboration tools like Trello, Asana, Basecamp, SharePoint, there may already be tools that your company has in place. So this might be, a given. You may be walking into this knowing exactly what tools you'll be using. I would love to hear in the chat box, what are some of the tools that you guys are using to communicate and collaborate with your teams right now? It's been amazing to me to see how, Microsoft Teams, like SharePoint, WebEx. Yeah, okay. A lot of really good examples. And Google Hangouts, exactly. A lot of supervisors found themselves who had worked in purely in-office situations, found themselves scrambling to understand, what is available to us? How do we do this? And so, any opportunity that you have to present a solution will only, benefit you and your team in the long run. So for those of you who are leading teams, whether it's at work or leading a team through YLC, maybe you lead a committee or a working group, or you're involved in other nonprofits in the community, when it comes to leading a team, this is where you have the opportunity to really establish what accountability looks like. If you've had a difficult situation with a boss, like, this is your chance to get it right. So establishing accountability and really clearly defining your expectations and how often you want to hear from your team. So I would love to know in the chat, how many of you are the boss? And if you're the boss, put the big cheese. You're the big cheese in the group chat. Let me know who the big cheeses are in here, who are leading teams of people. Whether it's you're a committee chair, whether you're an office in an organization, or whether you're the big cheese in your work group. I know that's cheesy, bear with me. And so when you, hey, yeah, it's okay, you can be the big cheese. So if you're the leader of your group, this is your chance to set, Stephanie's the big cheese, to set what those expectations look like. Brie is delicious. I mean, come on, baked brie with like a nice apricot chutney on top. Now I want brie. If I could make one recommendation, one easy recommendation in order to make sure that you're creating both accountability, communication, and collaboration with your team, it's something that looks like a morning or a weekly stand-up meeting. And stand-up because it's typically something that in an office setting, standing up, but with all of the virtual meeting tools that we have now, this is something that would be very easily coordinated online. And so if you're not familiar with what the morning or weekly stand-up looks like, I've got a sample agenda for you. And you could not only do this virtually, but you could make this a morning email or morning report. And you have everyone quickly answer the questions. What did you do yesterday? And this is not a laundry list. This is not the 25 things that you had on your to-do list yesterday. This is, what is that big thing that you did yesterday? Followed by, what are you doing today? Again, super quick. What are you doing today? And then finally, excuse me, what obstacles in your way so that you as the leader have the ability to work through and help them eliminate any obstacles that they might have in order to getting things done. And this is also a potential solution that you could offer your boss if they're struggling to come up with a good, consistent way to check in with you and your team on a regular basis. So again, it's just super quick. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what obstacles are in your way? One of my clients actually uses this format in a weekly email report that she has her team do. Instead of having a virtual meeting, they all have to send an email by Thursday afternoon that reports on what did you do this week, what are you doing next week, and what obstacles are in your way. So in addition to putting together a morning or weekly stand-up, it's really important that you clarify communication tools. You know, this is the first time that you're not able to just pop into someone's office to check in with them. And so one opportunity for clarifying communications tools, does that not run the risk of, Andrew, I think that's so Andrew just sent me a really great question that I would love for you to share with the group if you would be willing to. And while you're sharing that with the group, I'm going to go get my little girl who just woke up from a nap. Because this is what working from home looks like. Yeah, in the times that we're in right now. Yeah, hey, this is Camilla. Thank you guys for being so understanding. So Andrew asked me the question, does that not run the risk of micromanaging? And that is a really great question. I think that whenever you make it clear that it's just, you know, what is the one big thing that you're all working on, that it allows for collaboration and group problem solving, especially if it's in a virtual meeting setting. And so that agenda format is used pretty widely in tech circles. I believe it's called Scrum, SCRUM. So I highly encourage you to, you know, just Google Scrum meetings, and it again, it may not work for everyone, but it's a really good way to keep the team connected into what everyone. And so, speaking of connection, clarifying communication tools. I can't tell you how often I hear from a client that whereas their email inbox used to be completely overflowing, now it's their Slack chat that they can't keep control of. It's okay. It's okay. Look. And so now that we are dipping our toes into this first big opportunity with remote work, thank you, Mignon. I appreciate you joining us. Really clarifying what is the purpose for each of those communications channels. What is the purpose for handling each of those communications channels? And, you know, just so that certain things don't get lost on inappropriate channels. So taking the opportunity to clarify that from the beginning will help everyone out. That piece of the puzzle is fun. It's, you know, finding opportunities to motivate your team and opportunities for team spirit. If you have standing meetings, you know, think about ways that you can have a theme day or to do something fun with it, just to kind of keep everyone together and on the same track, even though you're not all together in the office each day. And so with that, that kind of sums everything up. It's really a telecommuting 101. You know, this is the basics. This is what can get you off the ground and can get you, you know, get you into a groove by focusing on your energy, by creating an environment for success, and by, you know, managing the expectations of both your boss and your team. And so I just want to remind you that you can grab that free guide to designing your own startup and shutdown routine at annadkornick.com/YLC. And I would love to stay in touch with you guys. You can find me on all social media channels at Anna D. Kornick. And you can visit my website if you would like to learn more about how we can work together. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ashley. And thank you guys so much for joining me and for being understanding once my assistant joined us.
Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate you joining us today. And I'm also, now that Andrew's back with us, I'm going to give him the ability to chat with us so that he can share some upcoming events we've got going on. or maybe not. In addition to Anna's great webinar, we're going to be able to put that online and share it with you guys so that you have the opportunity to revisit her website as well as those tools later on. We will be having more webinars coming up in the next weeks, ideally with a Tuesday and Friday recurring schedule so that you can get professional and personal development while working from home. And we just sent out an email as well about our Read to Lead program, which is a fun way to engage with classical texts from Greek and Roman literature to explore common themes within leadership and kind of see how universal some of the truths, issues, and challenges can be. Does anybody have any questions for Anna before we end?
Hey, Kelly, that's a great question. I know that I've come across several in the last few days and weeks as I've been researching, and I will put some together and send them your way. Do you want to, you can send me, yeah, yeah, no problem, Kelly. And if any of you guys if any of you guys think of any questions after, I invite you to follow me on Instagram and send me a DM because I answer DMs a whole lot faster than I respond to email. So always feel free to find me on Instagram.
Also, in case anyone hasn't seen his message from Andrew, he says that if you have other ideas or topics for webinars in the future, please email him at membershipvp@ylcnola.org.